What happens when a royal guest walks onto live television thinking she's untouchable, only to discover that an Emmy-winning host refuses to play by her rules? In just 41 seconds, one explosive comment turned a routine morning interview into the most shocking meltdown in talk show history. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side. We're exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on this outrageous behavior. Now, let's dive in. The studio lights were bright that morning. The Good Morning America set looked perfect as always. Michael Strahan sat in his chair, smiling that famous smile of his. He had his notes ready. His coffee was still hot. Everything seemed normal. Just another Tuesday morning in New York City. Just another celebrity interview. Or so everyone thought. Meghan walked onto the set like she owned the place. Her heels clicked loud against the floor. She didn't smile at the crew. She didn't wave at the audience. She just walked straight to her seat and sat down. No, hello, no thank you, nothing. Michael noticed but stayed professional. He's done thousands of interviews. He knows how to handle difficult guests. Good morning and welcome back, Michael said to the camera, still smiling. We have a very special guest with us today. Please welcome Meghan Markle. The audience clapped. Meghan gave a small wave, but her face looked cold. She crossed her legs and stared at Michael like she was bored already. Thanks for having me, she said, but her voice had no warmth in it. We're excited to have you here, Michael replied, keeping things friendly. So let's jump right in. You've been in the public eye for years now. How are you handling everything? Meghan sighed loudly. Actually sighed. On live television. Well, Michael, I think the better question is, why is everyone so obsessed with asking me how I'm handling things? Maybe you should be asking why the media won't leave me alone. Michael's smile didn't fade. He's a professional. That's actually a fair point. The media attention on you has been intense, but you did choose to do this interview with us today, so our viewers are curious about your life. Curious, Meghan repeated, like the word tasted bad. Is that what we're calling it now? Curious? People aren't curious, Michael. They're invasive, they're cruel, and shows like this one feed into that cruelty. The crew members looked at each other. This was getting uncomfortable fast. Michael kept his cool. I understand you've had negative experiences with the press, but Good Morning America has always tried to be fair and respectful. We invited you here to share your story in your own words. My own words? Meghan laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. That's rich. You have a list of questions right there in front of you. Questions your producers wrote. Questions designed to get me to say what you want me to say. Don't pretend this is some genuine conversation. Michael looked down at his notes, then back at Meghan. These are just talking points to guide our discussion. You're free to say whatever you want. That's why you're here. Am I though? Meghan shot back. Am I really free to say whatever I want? Because every time I've spoken my truth, I've been attacked for it. Every time I've stood up for myself, people like you have twisted my words. People like me? Michael asked calmly. What does that mean? Meghan leaned forward. You know exactly what it means. The tension in the studio was thick now. You could feel it. The cameramen were frozen. The producers in the control room were panicking. This was live television. There was no editing this out, no saving it for later. This was happening right now in front of millions of people. Michael took a breath. I think there might be some confusion here. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. I haven't twisted anything. We literally just started. Oh, here we go, Meghan said, rolling her eyes. The innocent act. You're all the same. Every single one of you hosts. You bring people on your shows. You smile your fake smiles. You ask your scripted questions. And then you act shocked when your guests call you out. Call me out for what exactly? Michael asked. His voice was still calm, but you could tell he was getting frustrated. I haven't done anything to you. I welcomed you here. I've been nothing but respectful. Respectful? Meghan's voice got louder. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about respect. Do you know how many interviews I've sat through where hosts like you have asked me inappropriate questions? Where they've made me feel small? Where they've treated me like I'm some kind of curiosity instead of a human being? I'm sorry, that's been your experience, Michael said sincerely. But I'm not those other hosts. I'm Michael Strahan, and I'm here to listen to you. But you have to give me a chance. Meghan shook her head. I don't have to give you anything. I don't owe you anything. I came here thinking maybe, just maybe, this would be different. But it's not. It's the same garbage dressed up in a nicer suit. One of the producers spoke into Michael's earpiece. He touched his ear briefly. The show needed to go to commercial. They needed to stop this train wreck. But Michael is a professional. He wanted to try one more time to salvage this. "Look," Michael said, leaning forward a bit. "I get that you're upset. I can see that. But taking it out on me isn't fair. I'm trying to do my job here. I'm trying to give you a platform to speak." "A platform?" Meghan laughed again. That same bitter laugh. "You think you're giving me a platform? I don't need your platform, Michael. I don't need Good Morning America. I don't need any of this. You need me. Your show needs guests like me to get ratings. So let's not pretend you're doing me some big favor by having me here." The audience was dead silent now. Nobody knew what to do. Should they clap? Should they stay quiet? This wasn't normal. This wasn't how interviews were supposed to go. Michael's co-host sitting at the desk looked shocked. They wanted to jump in, but didn't know how. "You're right," Michael said calmly. "We did invite you because we thought our viewers would want to hear from you. That's how television works. But that doesn't mean we don't respect you. That doesn't mean this has to be hostile." "Hostile?" Meghan stood up suddenly. She was actually standing up in the middle of the interview. "You think I'm being hostile? This is me being honest. This is me not playing your game anymore. I'm done being the polite little guest who sits here and answers your questions with a smile while you people make millions talking about my life." Michael stood up too, not in an aggressive way, just to match her energy, to show he wasn't going to be walked over. "Nobody is making you stay here. If you want to leave, you can leave. But don't come onto my show and disrespect me and my team when we've done nothing wrong." "Nothing wrong?" Meghan's voice was sharp now. Really sharp. "You want to know what's wrong? What's wrong is that I have to keep explaining myself to people who will never understand. What's wrong is that I have to sit here and be questioned by someone who has no idea what it's like to live my life. What's wrong is that shows like this pretend to care about me when all you really care about is the story, the drama, the clicks." "That's not true," Michael said firmly. "I do care. I care about every guest who sits in that chair. But you walked in here with an attitude from the start. You didn't give this interview a chance. You didn't give me a chance." "I don't have to give you a chance," Meghan shouted. Actually shouted. On live television, her voice echoed through the studio. "I don't have to do anything I don't want to do anymore. I'm not some puppet who performs on command. I'm a human being with feelings and boundaries, and I'm done pretending everything is okay when it's not." Michael shook his head. "Nobody asked you to pretend. Nobody asked you to be a puppet. All I did was say, 'Good morning,' and try to start a conversation. You're the one who came in here ready for a fight." "Because I'm tired, Michael," Meghan yelled. "I'm tired of all of it. I'm tired of being picked apart. I'm tired of being analyzed. I'm tired of people like you acting like you have any right to my story." "Then why did you agree to come here?" Michael asked. His voice was getting louder too now, not yelling, but stronger, more firm. "If you're so tired of interviews, why did you say yes to this one? Why waste everyone's time?" Meghan pointed her finger at him. "Don't you dare talk to me about wasting time. You don't get to speak to me that way. Do you know who I am?" And there it was. The moment everything exploded. Those 5 words. "Do you know who I am?" The most entitled phrase anyone can say. The audience gasped. Michael's face changed. You could see it. He was done being nice. "Yes," Michael said slowly. "I know exactly who you are. You're a guest on my show. And right now, you're being incredibly rude to me and everyone here who worked hard to make this interview happen." "Rude?" Meghan's face turned red. "I'm being rude? How dare you? How absolutely dare you call me rude? I have every right to stand up for myself. I have every right to push back when I'm being treated poorly." "But you're not being treated poorly," Michael said, raising his voice now. "That's what you don't seem to understand. You walked in here with a chip on your shoulder. You decided before we even started that this was going to be a bad experience. You created this situation." "I created this?" Meghan looked around at the audience like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Everyone is watching this, right? Everyone sees what he's doing? He's gaslighting me. Right here on live television." "I'm not gaslighting you," Michael said, clearly frustrated now. "I'm telling you the truth. And the truth is that you came here looking for a fight, and now you're upset that you're getting one." Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. "I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to sit here and be attacked." "Attacked?" Michael almost laughed. "You're the one who attacked me? From the moment you sat down, you've been nothing but disrespectful. You insulted me. You insulted my show. You insulted my crew. All we did was invite you here and try to have a conversation. This conversation is over, Meghan said, starting to walk away. Wait, Michael called after her. You can't just walk off in the middle of an interview. Meghan spun around. Watch me. But she didn't make it far. A producer stepped onto the set. A tall woman with glasses and a headset. She looked nervous but determined. Meghan, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the building. Meghan's eyes went wide. Excuse me? You heard her, Michael said. You can't treat people this way and expect no consequences. This is our show, our studio, and you're not welcome here anymore. You're kicking me out? Meghan looked genuinely shocked, like she couldn't believe this was happening. You can't kick me out. I'm the guest. You were the guest, the producer said calmly but firmly. But your behavior has been unacceptable. We need you to leave. Meghan looked at Michael, then at the producer, then at the cameras. This is unbelievable. This is absolutely unbelievable. You people are unbelievable. The door is that way, Michael said, pointing. For a moment, Meghan just stood there. She looked like she was trying to decide what to do. Should she yell more? Should she storm off? Should she try to apologize? But her pride wouldn't let her apologize. You could see it on her face. So instead, she did what entitled people always do when they don't get their way. She played the victim one last time. You'll regret this, Meghan said quietly. All of you. When the truth comes out about how I was treated here today, you'll all regret this. The truth is on camera, Michael said, gesturing to the crew. Millions of people just watched what happened. They saw everything. They can decide for themselves who was in the wrong here. That seemed to hit Meghan hard. The reality of it. This wasn't a private conversation. This wasn't something that could be spun later. This was live. This was recorded. This was real, and she had just made herself look terrible in front of the entire country. Fine, she said, her voice shaking now. Whether from anger or embarrassment, nobody could tell. Fine, I'm leaving, but this isn't over. Yeah, it is, Michael said simply, and with that, Meghan turned and walked off the set. Her heels clicked against the floor again, but this time, it didn't sound powerful. It sounded defeated. The studio doors closed behind her with a heavy thud. Michael stood there for a moment. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. The whole thing had been so uncomfortable, so awkward, so completely unexpected. Finally, Michael turned back to the camera. He straightened his tie. He took a breath. And he did what great hosts do. He kept going. Well, Michael said with a slight smile, that was something. I apologize to everyone watching at home. That's not how we planned for this morning to go. But sometimes in live television, things don't go as planned. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll move on to our next segment. The camera cut away. The producers called for commercial. And in those few seconds before the break ended, Michael sat back down in his chair. He looked tired, not because the interview was hard. He'd done hard interviews before, but because it's exhausting dealing with someone who refuses to be reasonable, someone who comes in ready to fight no matter what you do. His co-host leaned over. You okay? She whispered. Michael nodded. Yeah, I'm good. That was wild though. You handled it perfectly, she said. You were respectful the whole time. She was the one who lost it. And that was the truth. Anyone watching could see it. Michael had been nothing but professional. He'd been kind. He'd been patient. He'd tried multiple times to steer the interview back to a positive place. But Meghan hadn't let him. She'd come in with an agenda. She'd wanted to make a scene. And when Michael wouldn't play along, when he stood up for himself, she couldn't handle it. The audience in the studio was still buzzing. People were whispering to each other. Some were on their phones already, probably texting their friends about what they'd just witnessed. This was going to be all over social media in minutes. All over the news by lunch. This was the kind of moment that defines careers. And while it might hurt Meghan's reputation, it was only going to make people respect Michael more. Because here's the thing about Michael Strahan. He's not just a talk show host. He's a former professional football player. He's been in high-pressure situations his entire life. He's been hit by guys twice his size. He's played in front of screaming crowds of 80,000 people. So a rude guest on a morning show? That doesn't shake him. That doesn't break him. He knows who he is. He knows what he stands for. And he's not going to let anyone treat him or his team with disrespect. When the show came back from commercial, Michael was smiling again. That genuine, warm smile that made him famous. He moved on to the next segment like nothing had happened. Because that's what professionals do. They don't dwell. They don't spiral. They do their job. But back in her car, driving away from the studio, Meghan was spiraling. She was texting her publicist in all caps. She was calling her friends, telling her side of the story. She was already planning her response, her statement, her explanation for why she'd acted that way. Because people like Meghan always have an explanation. It's never their fault. It's always someone else's. The host was rude. The questions were unfair. The energy was wrong. There's always an excuse. But the cameras don't lie. And millions of people had just watched her reveal who she really is. Not the polished, media-trained version. Not the carefully crafted public image. But the real her. The entitled, defensive, angry version that comes out when things don't go her way. Social media exploded within minutes. Twitter was on fire. People were posting clips, making memes, taking sides. But here's the interesting thing. Even people who usually defended Meghan were having a hard time with this one because it was so clear, so obvious. Michael had done nothing wrong. He'd been respectful. He'd been kind, and she'd attacked him anyway. Did anyone else just watch that train wreck on Good Morning America? One tweet said. It got 40,000 likes in an hour. Michael Strahan is a class act. He handled that with so much grace, another person wrote. Imagine being so entitled that you go on a talk show and then get mad at the host for asking you questions. Someone else posted. The comments kept coming, thousands of them, and the overwhelming majority were supporting Michael. Because people aren't stupid. They can see through fake outrage. They can tell when someone is genuinely being mistreated versus when someone is just playing the victim. Back in the studio, Michael finished the show like always. He thanked the audience. He thanked his co-hosts. He smiled and waved as the credits rolled. And when the cameras turned off, he let out a long breath. That was insane, one of the producers said, walking over to him. Michael nodded. Yeah, that was definitely a first for me. You were amazing, though, she continued. You didn't let her walk all over you. You stood your ground without being mean. That's really hard to do. Thanks, Michael said. I just tried to be honest. I wasn't going to let her disrespect everyone here. We worked too hard for that. And that's the real lesson from all of this. Respect goes both ways. You can't demand respect while being disrespectful. You can't play the victim while being the aggressor. You can't walk into someone's house and then complain about the furniture. Meghan learned that lesson the hard way. On live television, in front of millions of people, the story spread fast. By that afternoon, every news outlet was covering it. Entertainment shows were playing the clips on repeat. Talk radio hosts were discussing it. It became the biggest story of the day. And while some people tried to defend Meghan, most people saw right through it. They saw what really happened. They saw who was really in the wrong. Michael's phone was blowing up with messages. Fellow hosts texting their support. Friends calling to check on him. His agent telling him he'd handled it perfectly. Even other celebrities were reaching out, privately telling him they'd had similar experiences with difficult guests, that he wasn't alone in dealing with entitled behavior. Because here's what people don't realize. This kind of thing happens more often than you'd think. But usually, it doesn't happen on live television. Usually, it happens in the commercial breaks, in the green room, behind closed doors where the public can't see. Producers deal with difficult guests all the time. Hosts have to manage egos constantly, but it stays private. It stays hidden until it doesn't. Meghan had made the mistake of letting her true colors show when the cameras were rolling. And now she couldn't take it back. She couldn't edit it. She couldn't spin it. It was out there forever. A permanent record of exactly who she is when she doesn't get her way. As the day went on, Meghan's team went into damage control mode. They released a statement saying she'd felt ambushed by the interview, that the questions were aggressive and inappropriate, that she'd been forced to defend herself. But anyone who watched the interview knew that was nonsense. The questions hadn't even started yet. Michael barely got 3 sentences out before she started attacking him. The statement made things worse, because now she wasn't just entitled, she was a liar. She was trying to rewrite history that millions of people had witnessed live. And people don't forget that. They don't forgive that. You can recover from having a bad day, from losing your temper, from making a mistake, but you can't recover from lying about it afterward. That's what really damages your reputation. Michael didn't release a statement. He didn't need to. The tape spoke for itself. His actions spoke for themselves. He'd been professional, respectful, and patient. Everyone could see that, so he just went about his day. He went home to his family, he had dinner, he watched TV, he lived his life, because he had nothing to apologize for, nothing to explain, nothing to defend. That night, the clip had been viewed over 50 million times online. 50 million. It was everywhere, On every platform, in every group chat, people couldn't stop talking about it. And the more they talked about it, the worse Meghan looked and the better Michael looked. By the next morning, Good Morning America's ratings had doubled. Everyone wanted to see what Michael would say. Would he address it? Would he apologize? Would he defend himself? But Michael did something better. He said nothing. He just did his job. He interviewed his guests. He read the news. He made jokes with his co-hosts. He moved on, and that made him look even better. It showed he was above it, that he wasn't going to drag it out or make it a bigger deal than it needed to be. Meanwhile, Meghan was stuck in the story. Every article about her mentioned the interview. Every social media post about her referenced the meltdown. She'd wanted attention. She'd gotten it, but not the kind she'd hoped for. The irony was thick. She'd spent years complaining about how the media treated her, about how she was always portrayed unfairly, about how nobody gave her a chance to tell her side of the story. And then, when given that exact opportunity on one of the biggest shows in America, she'd blown it. Spectacularly. She'd proven every critic right. She'd confirmed every suspicion. She'd become the villain in her own story. And Michael? He just solidified his reputation as one of the best in the business. Someone who could handle any situation with grace. Someone who knew how to stand up for himself without being cruel. Someone who understood that being kind doesn't mean being a pushover. The producers at Good Morning America knew they'd witnessed something special, something that would be talked about for years. It would be shown in media classes as an example of how to handle a difficult guest. It would be studied by future hosts trying to learn how to manage conflict on live television. It was a masterclass in professionalism under pressure. And for Meghan, it was a cautionary tale, a reminder that you can't fake authenticity, that you can't demand respect while giving none, that you can't play the victim when you're clearly the aggressor. The cameras had caught everything, the audience had seen everything, and now the world knew everything. This is what happens when entitlement meets accountability. When someone who's used to getting their way suddenly doesn't. When someone who's used to people backing down meets someone who won't. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, it's dramatic, but it's also necessary because people need to see that actions have consequences, that you can't treat others poorly and expect no pushback, that being famous or royal or successful doesn't give you the right to be cruel.